Folks, welcome back to another review with yours truly, Sam Healey. Today, we're taking a look at 12 heroes. Now, I'm showing you the box because the box cover has great artwork on it, but I do want to show you the actual physical box because the artwork can be a little bit deceptive. It looks like a big, grandiose game. It actually isn't. It's only a two-player game where you're struggling for control over these different regions, farms and mines and cities and that type of thing. And basically, whoever gets to 7 victory points first is the winner. But there's a lot of logistics that go along there. There's hand management, resource management, all that kind of stuff that's thrown in there. It sounds epic, grandiose. Let's get down to the table. I'll show you how it works. Then you can make that final decision. Okay, so here I have set up for you a game of 12 Heroes. 12 Heroes is a two-player game where one person takes either one faction or you can draft a number of cards, but your decks have, your hero decks have 12 cards in them only, which is why the name is 12 Heroes. And the general point of the game is to control enough territories to gain these victory points, and the first person to get 7 victory points is the winner. Now, the way you do that is not convoluted, but there is a process that you have to go through in order to do that. Each turn that you have will be split up into 4 different phases. You first of all have a control phase where you're going to check to see if you control the different things that are out here, possibly placing one of your control cubes out there. Then you'll go to an upkeep phase where you have to feed the heroes that are in your different regions here. Then you're also going to have an income phase where you're going to get 2 gold and draw a card from your deck. And then you're going to go into your military phase where you can hire new heroes, deploy them, move them around into the different regions, and then possibly get more provisions for your soldiers in the field. And so generally speaking, your first turn, whoever goes first, is able to look at their cards. Now the cards have different things on them. First of all, they have a military power that is afforded your forces by the number that's in the shield up at the top. Then down here in the food pot, you have the number of food that is necessary to purchase them and hire them into your army. And then down at the bottom, there's a special ability that each hero has. Sometimes, for example, here, the strategist, whenever the strategist is hired, you can send any amount of your deployed heroes that are out here in your regions, back to your camp, which is a line that's back here, an arbitrary line, wherever you want to make it really. The knight, for example, whenever he is hired, you must take one of your heroes currently in play, either in your camp or in a region, and put them back into your hand, which means that you can redeploy them at another point, which could be helpful. Maybe it's not helpful. Maybe it hurts more. So that's just one of the things. But he's really powerful as far as strength is concerned for military might. So the first person is going to get to, first of all, choose any of these that they don't want. For example, if the cost of the cards are too much for you, then maybe you want to go back, because you don't go through the control, upkeep, or income phase on the first turn, the first player that is. They start with the military phase. So maybe you want to spend, a couple, maybe one of your military actions, of your 3 military actions, to provision first, gain some gold, and then you'll be able to put something out there. You never know. I think I'm just going to stay with what I have here, and then I'm going to provision twice. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the strategist into my camp down here at the back. I'm not going to deploy him out here because I only have 3 actions. I did provision twice, and then I deployed once. So that's my 3 actions. I'm done. So now it goes to my opponent's turn. They're going to take their cards and flip them over, and they had a little bit of a better draw. I'm taking the humans against the orcs, by the way. And so they go through their, first of all, control phase. They check to see if they're controlling anything. They aren't. Then they go to the upkeep phase. They don't have any heroes to feed. And then they go to the income phase. They're going to take two food, and they're going to draw one card into their hand, like so. And then they're going to be able to go into their military phase, and they have 3 actions that they can choose to do out of the 4 possibilities. So maybe he wants to hire. Deploy him, first of all, into the camp, and then we're going to... we're going to hire him first. Got to get my terminologies right. Hire him first, and then we're going to deploy him for free because that's his special ability out to the farm. And he doesn't take any food with it. He just runs up to battle. All right, now that's one action. That was a hire action, and the deploy was for free. I'm going to also do a provision, and then we're going to, let's see here, we're going to go ahead and spend 2 to hire the provisioner. When provisioner is hired, 1 food in each region where you have at least 1 hero present. So we're going to go ahead and put a food there because he couldn't take any food with him. And then let's see here, that was hire, and then deploy is going to go right here. And he's going to take this food with him so that he can stick around for a little bit longer. Goes back to my opponents. We have a control. So they take 1 cube where they have control. All right. Now, what would happen here is, let's say that I already had this cube here, and it would come time to put another cube on there. At that point, if there is no other regions or places to hold my cube, that means that I have won this, as long as it's not tied and there isn't some kind of tiebreaker in effect. So I would take this, I would score it, that becomes mine, and then this one would flip over. Then we go to income. He gets 2 food and a card. And now he is going to go into his military phase. Provision 1. And we're going to provision another one. And then we're going to spend 3 to hire the chariot. Okay, so back to my turn. We're going to go to the control phase. I control the mine. I have to go through upkeep, so this food is lost. The strategist ate all of it. Then I take 2 food from the supply, and I draw a card. So now I have a cannon as well. And let's see here. I'm going to provision 1. Then we're going to pay 4. So this is my second action, to hire the Archangel. When the Archangel is hired, I got to do this first. I can earn 4 food in a region where I have at least 1 hero. So I do that, and then we move up. I don't need to take that one. Comes back over here, control phase. The goblin is controlling the farm, so we would put a cube out. There's no place to put the cube, and there's no opposing force over here. So this comes off, and the farm becomes the orcs. They own it now, and this is flipped over. So now there's a mine. Now, if there had been anybody over here in opposition to the person who won, then they would stay there. These people would go away. So this one goes over here, and any food that was on them is lost. This person eats this food. During the upkeep phase, income happens where we gain 2 food and draw a card into their hand. And now we're going into the military phase, where we're going to deploy the war chariot here with a food. And the war chariot says when it is deployed, you can send an opposing hero with a cost of 3 or less back to their camp. So the Archangel has a 4, so they are immune. So the strategist here comes back to the camp back here, but all this food stays in this region, like so. So the Archangel is well provisioned for the battle. And now we go through, we should have controlled right here as well. And now we go through the military phase, which is what we're in right here. That was the first step. Second step, we're going to go ahead and provision and provision. And that would be the end of that turn. And that's pretty much how 12 Heroes plays until one person has gained, like I said before, 7 victory points, and they are the winner of the game. Let's get up top for my final thoughts. So that is 12 Heroes. I hope I gave you a pretty good idea of how the game plays. That's my main concern. Now, there are a couple of different modes. You can play with the factions, as I did. I had the humans and the orcs out. You also have 2 other factions, the mechanized faction and the elves faction. They have pre-constructed decks in the box for you to play those 2 factions. You can also do a draft mode where you start with 6 cards out on the table. Both players start with 6 cards. You just shuffle everything together, and you each have a hand of 6 cards. You choose 2 of them, pass the 4 to the other guy, and he does the same thing, and you do that until you have 6, and then you repeat the process so that you each have 12 cards in your deck at the beginning of the game. So there is that. That's a pretty interesting mechanism, or you can just use the pre-constructed faction decks that are already in the box. So, I mean, I guess, there's some stuff here. There's some substance, right? There's some stuff to kind of latch onto in the game, especially for a 2-player game. So that's a cool thing. There's substance here. There's not just a bunch of artwork and tokens and stuff like that, and you have to kind of make up the rest. There's actually some construct here. Now, I mentioned artwork. That was one of the cool things that drew me to the game to begin with. The box cover is amazingly interesting. I mean, it really pulled me in. I just love how that looks. The warrior looking to the lands, the ships sailing down the river, and all this other kind of stuff. Really enjoy that artwork. The problem is that the tiles, not good artwork, and seemingly a different style of artwork than the box. And then you have the cards that come in the decks. Those are kind of not the same either as far as artwork style is concerned. So there's some, I guess, some discongruity. I don't even think that's a word. It just doesn't match. It doesn't look like one designer kind of took this game under his wing and produced it and did everything that he wanted to do with it. It looks like there were a couple of different people working on it, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I understand that. I think our team of artists, if they work well together, they can make a game look really nice, even though the artwork doesn't necessarily match. But this one is... It seems to just have a level of disconnect that's there, and I didn't like it very much. I mean, any of the artwork on its own looks great, but when you put it together, it just looks like it's disjointed. So that's that. But, I mean, it looks good. It just is distracting, I guess you could say. Another pro of the game, a pro of the game is that turns do go pretty quickly. There isn't a whole lot of downtime. I mean, it is just a 2-player game anyway, so usually 2-player games don't have an excruciating amount of downtime, if they have any downtime at all, because you usually want to pay attention to what your opponent's doing when it's not your turn, so that you can kind of have a good idea of what you need to do on yours. The different phases almost kind of melt away because you just know what you have to do. I mean, the first 3 phases, control, upkeep, and income, those just go right by. And then the military phase, where you have to decide between those 4 different actions, which 3 of them you're going to do. That's where the meat of your turn is, and even that goes pretty fast because there's a limited number of choices that you have to make on the board. You know kind of where you need to go to battle with your opponent, or you need to bolster your strength on this region so that your opponent doesn't have a chance of competing with you there. So turns go pretty fast. Cons are simply, first of all, the artwork is distracting, and secondarily, I don't feel like there are enough choices in the game. And furthermore, there aren't enough levels of differentiation between the different factions to make you want to play that. I really enjoy having factions that feel different and play different than my opponent or opponents if I'm in a multiplayer game. And the fact that these had factions made me interested. I was like, oh yeah, cool, this is going to be good. I'm gonna have my own style. And really you don't, because when you look at the different cards that are in each of the different faction decks, yeah, they have different artwork, they have different names, maybe they have a little bit of a different power to them. But in practicality, when you actually get through playing the game, it does not feel different. You're just doing the same thing, just in a little bit of a different way. So that was a letdown for me as well. So all in all, I guess what I'm trying to say here is that I think that there are going to be people out there that enjoy this game. They're going to like the brevity of it. Some people will enjoy that. Some people will be drawn by the artwork and they won't be as distracted by the different kinds of artwork that's out there. It was just disappointing for me. I wanted more out of it. I wanted to enjoy it a bit more. I wanted it to be a bigger game. But with that being said, I guess that's it. I'm going to give it a kind of a low rating of about a 5. It's just right in the middle of the road for me. It's not necessarily bad, but it's just not for me either. So that's that for 12 Heroes. We'll see you guys on the flip side.